The world of Crimson Desert is as stunning as it is addictive. It has the best looking architecture and real world physics in any game to date, with breathtaking visuals like this all over the game world. However, there are major issues with this engine, so I took it upon myself to do some research and find out what's going on, and to figure out what in broken gaming hell is this, why isn't it fixed, can it be fixed, and well...
It's not looking good, Bev.
So real quick, these are the specs for my system. RTX 4070 Super, undervolted, Ryzen 5 7600 CPU, and 32GB DDR5 memory at 6000 MHz, which is about 80% faster compared to a base PS5, and 25% faster compared to a PS5 Pro. Okay, let's get into it. So there I am playing the game, wandering around, having fun, and I start to see graininess start to happen when the light starts to get lower. It's not dark, but it's getting dark. It doesn't look right. But for some reason I could hear rain. Couldn't see rain, so it must be raining, right? Let's take the lamp out. Oh look, it's raining. What and how? What's going on? Where's all the noise gone? And without my lamp, why is it getting noisier and noisier as the light's starting to get darker and darker, until it became completely unplayable? And I'm using ray reconstruction, which is supposed to fix this. And I'm using a decent build. I have tried subsequent builds up to 1.6, but it's the same result. So turning ray reconstruction off makes everything look soft and smudgy. And the rain is gone as well. So there's something up with the lighting in this game that's affecting everything. Even the rain. You see, it's kind of just where the light is, that's where the rain is being affected or shown. So something's up with lighting that affects everything. And people might say, well, just turn off ray reconstruction to get rid of that noisy speckles. But you get this sort of ghosting with shadows of light, and the light information takes a lot longer to update. So you're kind of left with picking between a compromise. And shiny materials start to glimmer even under normal light conditions.
So what is the $64,000 question?
So we have to ask ourselves, what type of lighting ray tracing does this game use? DF sat down with Perlibus and they said they use 1/116th ray per pixel for the diffuse GI and many light system, and for specular GI they use 1/4 ray per pixel. So diffuse ray trace global illumination just handles how light is being bounced off rough, matte surfaces like wood, stone or cloth, and specular RTGI just handles light bouncing off smooth, reflective surfaces like mirrors, polished metal or water. They go on to say they use other advanced techniques like Surfels and radiance caches and like mentioned many light system. With all of those advanced ray tracing techniques, it's still not good enough under low light conditions. So let's focus on what's important, which is that ray budget. However, they did mention that the ray per pixel ratio varies depending on quality. But more on that later, because first I needed to know how ray tracing works so we can understand what's going on and why it's going on. So let's take this scene for example. So it's running at 1440p on performance mode. So the internal render is at 50% here, because this is how DLSS handles render scaling at this mode, which means the GPU is actually rendering at 720p. So this means that 50% of the 1440p output in terms of pixels are fake or AI generated, whichever term you want to use. And this is important because ray tracing is in the mixture now. But we need at least a basic idea of how ray tracing works. So let's start here. So here's a basic diagram of how real-time ray tracing works. And this is pulled from Nvidia's website. The ray tracing happens from our viewpoint, which is the camera. And from here, rays are shot into the scene. These rays are simulating real light, so they're invisible, they're not actually light rays. The simulated rays shot through a pixel at our render resolution, which in our case is a 720p render resolution. So the ray gets shot into the geometry of the game world, but the game world is colorless and lightless, so this is where it does most of its job. So the rays are bouncing around the scene, gathering information. It will hit BVHs or Surfels. It does make the ray tracing process a lot more efficient. But more on that later in the video. Right, so we have a direct ray shot into, let's say, the floor. From here, the calculation starts. The GPU will start to say, okay, is this a shiny marble floor or is it a carpet and rough floor? What's the color, etc. It starts to determine all of that. And with this, you have indirect light, so the bounce. So this bounce could hit a wall or hit this object, piece of wood, I don't know, whatever. So this indirect bounce doesn't actually hit the light source. It's very rare that it does because it's all random. Right, from here it could be going boom, boom, anywhere in many different directions. And it's not just hitting air, it's hitting objects, and the GPU is calculating what these things are being hit. So how does it know what light color it is? Well, you've got shadow rays. Whether an engine shoots a shadow ray with the initial ray or with the bounced ray, that is down to the specific engine. So we've got the ray hits the point. From this point, a shadow ray is cast. A shadow ray's job is already predetermined. So it says the GPU has instructed me that there's an optimal light source in the room, and it's my job to find where that is relative to the ray endpoint from which I've been shot. So the shadow ray goes for this. But if it's blocked by an object like this, then the shadow ray feeds back that data, that instance, and says it can't go any further, and the floor will be in shadow or darkness. But if the engine allows for bounced light, or what they call indirect lighting, which costs more, but let's say it hits this, so it bounces, and let's say it hits a wardrobe. From this point, a shadow ray at the end point is cast, and if it's a clear path, success. We can have light information for the wardrobe over here, or a wall, or wherever it is. Okay, so shadow rays can be cast from the end point of the initial ray or the bounced ray, but nearly about the end point of the ray. Okay, and then from there the GPU sends the color information to the pixel. So now that we know that, let's quantify this all to get an even better understanding of things. So we know our GPU has 921,600 real pixels that it's rendering, and our array budget is 1/116th, and a quick calculation gives us 57,600. So that means 57,600 pixels are responsible for the light and color information for 921,600 pixels. And then those 50,000 also have to account for the light and color information for when it's upscaled at 1440p, which means that's 3.6 million pixels it has to account for. And if that was all that there was to it, it would look like this, a statically mess, because the other 15 odd pixels have no information. So how does it get around this hurdle? Because clearly it doesn't look this bad. Yes, you probably guessed it.
AI, artificial intelligence.
So it's obvious that the engine is doing something to fill in those other pixels to create stable images. So let's go back into the pixel level and continue where we left off. And the way they achieve filling in these pixels is by the use of denoisers. And a denoiser is a specialized algorithm that cleans up grainy visual artifacts that they call noise as produced by ray tracing. Now this game has two types of denoisers. One set is the engine's own denoiser, where it's generally used on consoles. The other one is ray reconstruction or ray regeneration, depending on if you're on Nvidia or AMD, and that's an option for PC players. And it generally replaces the native denoiser. In some instances, some games can run with it, but that's down to how the engine utilizes it. So a native denoiser generally uses that sample ray and smears it across the other pixels in its grid, because that's what it's mathematically trained to do. It doesn't know anything else. So it does this in this grid, and then it uses a grid next to it in the same frame, in the same picture, and gets an idea of the color scheme and the lighting based on that. It does also use a lot of temporal data, so it can use a previous frame and say, well, that previous frame had this color here, this pixel here. I'm going to use some of that data as well. So what you get is a smeary, smudgy sort of look, because it's not intelligently doing it. It's doing it on a purely mathematical level. So the image you get it's decent, but it's not crisp. Simply put, it sees a bunch of noisy pixels and tries to average them. So ray reconstruction doesn't use any sort of smudging to fill in the blank pixels. Instead, ray reconstruction has been trained on a neural network to denoise ray traced images. It's been trained on a supercomputer. So it's an AI model that has been specifically designed and developed and trained to recognize patterns in images, objects in images, how light interacts with images from thousands of different angles, because it's seen it a million odd times on high quality rendered images. So it can recognize pictures on a pixel level. So it can fill in the gaps, noise on such a high detail because it can say, I've seen this pattern before and I know what this is. I know the exact shadows. I know the exact color scheme it needs. And on top of that, it has ridiculously advanced mathematics to aid in the denoising process. So it smashes anything that a traditional denoiser can do any day of the week. Now let's compare these two in Crimson Desert side by side. So our man Cliff is somewhere in Urnand running towards this cave, but look at the detail and the difference. It's absolutely crazy. The crevices in the stonework, the ground detail, the shadow detail. We can even see more detail in the cave from the same sort of perspective. But let's go deeper. As he gets closer, the shadows being cast by the candle start to pop a little bit, but that's par for the course in this game, isn't it? And as we enter, the difference is clear once again. The detail on the rocks, the sharpness of the edges of the rocks. Even in the distance where the light is being cast, there's some sort of wood planks there, and even those look more detailed. But from here on in is where ray reconstruction starts to fall apart. It starts to show its noise and speckles, and where we know this noise is happening on both sides, but the native denoiser smudges it out, smooths it out. But ray reconstruction, the AI model, doesn't smooth it out. It makes it sharper. It's overdoing it, and it thinks that, oh, this is a ray of light, or this pixel is lit up in this frame, this pixel is not lit up in this frame, but it amplifies it because it thinks, oh, this is a very detailed part of this image, or this is an object, I've seen this before. So that noise you're seeing, it's the AI bugging out because it's working too hard, all because of that really low ray budget. Ray reconstruction doesn't have enough light information to work effectively here. So we're left with two broken choices. One with RR off, but we're left with ghosting, blurring, and the updating of the light information is very slow. Ray reconstruction fixes all these issues, but it makes it look like you're in a Friday night disco instead. But what on earth is going on over there? It looks like light is leaking in from the wall, from the outside where it shouldn't be, and this is down to yet another lighting improper use in technology in the form of surfels and radiance caches. These are invisible circles around the whole geometry of the world that can store color and light information data. So the engine can shoot its ray once or twice, and then it can be stored and reused frame after frame. Very efficient. I think it's an EA technology. So here's someone from the R&D team talking a little bit more about it to give us a better picture.
Global illumination based on Surfels is a solution for calculating indirect diffuse illumination in real time. The solution combines hardware ray tracing with a discretization of the scene geometry to cache and amortize lighting calculations across time and space. It requires no pre-computation, no special meshes, and no special UV sets. Gibbs supports high-fidelity lighting while accommodating content of arbitrary scale.
It's a little bit hard to follow, I know, but the gist of it is it makes ray tracing more efficient because surfels can talk to each other, share information, light, color, so each frame doesn't have to start a fresh cycle of sending rays to get information on what it's hitting and whatnot because it's already been done. So the engine, using this technique, has the opportunity to use a lower ray per pixel count. But if you're too aggressive with a low ray per pixel count, let's say 1/116th or anything below 1, in my opinion, then you will exhibit light bleeding, which we saw. And this light bleeding happens because the engine doesn't have enough light information to know exactly where a wall begins or ends, because at the end of the day, it's estimating based on very little light information. So light leaks through thin geometry or corners where it shouldn't. So you might see what we saw, glows on the wall, glows on the cracks of the door, because the surfels on the other side of the thin wall are giving light information to the wrong side of the wall. And we also got a convergence lag or a slow light response. Because the engine has so few new rays each frame, it takes time for the lighting to settle when things change. So you move your lamp from position A to B, there'll be a drawn out bleeding, a lag, the shadows will slowly catch up. But we know ray reconstruction fixes this, but brings its own issues to the table. So is there any game that uses ray traced global illumination and surfels together effectively? And the answer is yes. This game. You can say what you want about the story all day long, and I'm probably with you, but the game is stable, and I specifically chose footage for when it's at night time to show you, but there's no noise, dithering, boiling, none of that. And I'd rather have a stable experience than one that is constantly showing me it's breaking down here but fine over here. And how is this possible? They stuck to a 1-to-1 ray per pixel count. It's the bare minimum, and it's what's needed, and it shows. So I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Assassin's Creed performs much better than Crimson Desert. And it's a more optimized game and a more stable experience. I mean, let's go back and compare it to Crimson Desert. Look how dark the shadows are. And we can surmise to why this might be happening now, because it's possible Crimson Desert have opted for a direct ray for their budget and no bouncing of rays. So dark areas stay almost pitch black because there's no subsequent gathering of information from subsequent rays. And maybe there's Surfels there that are filled with limited color information, sharing dark color and light information. So who knows? And just a quick side note, I don't actually own Assassin's Creed Shadows. I've just done a lot of research into how it would perform on my rig based on Crimson Desert, and I'd get about a solid 60 FPS with really high settings, maxed I think. The point is, it doesn't suffer from that noise, and if a game gives me consistency in what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing graphically, lighting wise, and it doesn't make me stop and play, say, well, this is game breaking or not, I'm looking for that as a standard. It's a shame I'd love to just test it out, but
I ain't buying that.
So back to Crimson Desert. I thought, well, let's check if upscaling makes a difference, and it really doesn't. Spoiler alert. Go from performance balanced, hardly anything, and as you're looking, just check the FPS numbers as well. Quality makes it look quite smudgy, and I don't know what that is, like it's crawling in blotches. So going to DLAA, it looks okay, but frame rate looks, it's not, for me that's not playable. And then just for kicks, 4K, it's still there, that's the problem. So you can go all the way up to 4K DLAA, but if you're in this sort of environment, you're looking at this and look at the performance, no way. So looking for a fix this way, it's a dead end. But I've got to call a spade and say, well, it's not completely atrocious at night time. What we saw in the beginning where it was raining, that's as bad as it will get. And rain is notoriously difficult with ray reconstruction, and I'm guessing with this engine and this denoiser, it's not great. So outdoors at night time is not as bad as that. Indoors, generally speaking, is like that if there's very little light sources. I mean, the thing is, you can walk around at night time and this game looks fantastic, like no other game right now, 100%. But as you might have already figured out, it looks a little bit too bright. The sky is blue. The background of those cities and landscape looks really bright, and it's like 12:30 at night. So it's like the theme of the game where it does something really, really good in cinematic, but then it breaks it again. It's like, I don't understand what's going on here. But this is again the theme of the game. It looks like there's a floodlight in the sky and not the moon, and the sky is blue at night. There's always something. But anyway, let's move on. Now, the idea that this game is end of generation, so that's why it will run so poorly. Your consoles are underpowered, your rigs are underpowered. That doesn't have any legs to stand on because this game exists. So let's compare like for like settings. DLSS ray reconstruction on, DLSS balanced, all the ray tracing features on, and path tracing off. So off the bat, it looks amazing. The reflections, specular detail, the diffuse detail, all of that looks outstanding. And I tried to find a very dark indoor area to look for that noise, that disco light, that speckle, but I'm hard pressed to find anything. The only thing I do find is on this pool table here, but again, it's not game breaking. I'm not happy with it. It's still ray tracing noise to a degree, but it's not a black dot, white dot coming at you and disorientating your experience. Again, I'm going to the corners, trying to look for dithering. Even in this TV, I'm actually surprised at how good the reflection looks. So let's go outside, check some of the volumetrics here, the lighting, the reflections of the lighting, even the color bleeding. Some people could say, or you can get away with saying this is path tracing, but it's not. And have a look at that frame rate as well, just before we go outside and have a look. Just looking for that lighting comparison, trying to find that really dark, clamped shadows. You're hard pressed to find it. It's mind-blowing sometimes just how good this game looks, performs, and how stable it is. I do see some shimmering there, but it's only when I stop and stare, but it's not game breaking. Again, these are ray tracing problems. But again, to say that this game is, or Crimson Desert is end of generation and you need to upgrade your hardware, no, because this is 2.5 years ago, Cyberpunk version 2. And it looks this good. So a game that comes after it and is performing worse, looks worse, doesn't make sense. So don't go out and change your hardware and upgrade. You don't need to, because unfortunately or fortunately, this game exists. Of course, the elephant in the room is how disgusting the launch was and how buggy it was. It didn't look like this, but they did have help from Nvidia. Now, the real reason why they helped them, don't know for sure, but we can theorize that, well, number one, they helped create the release of DLSS 3.5, and they created the first iteration of ray reconstruction, which is huge. And I think they also released path tracing in a game as well for the first time, I think, is along with Alan Wake 2 and Portal. And of course, doing all of this helped Nvidia's hardware sales, which is why you would always see them use Cyberpunk for their tech demos when they show their new GPUs. So it's like a mutually beneficial branding sort of thing. Or CD Projekt Red was so far badly in need of help that they probably done something like this. I don't know.
Nvidia.
Destroy my enemies, and my life is yours.
Nvidia
would save.
Cyberpunk 2077.
He would turn him into the perfect warrior, chained and seared to the flesh, a part of the bearer's
Engine.
a permanent reminder of
CD Projekt Red's
pledge.
So swiftly moving on, I found this area and then I found this in the sky. Clouds. Broken ones with pixely edges every time something would obstruct its line of sight, or so I thought. So back in Urnand, I'm seeing this sort of pixelation from the chimneys on the houses, and I'm starting to see a trend where if something is in front or behind of this volumetric effect, it starts to show this pixelation. And even this on these confettis, you can see on the outside, it exposes how on the outside of the volumetrics it starts to get pixelated. But when you're close up, it does look really good in next gen. But when you're decently far away, it just looks really horrible, and it breaks the illusion of that you're in a current gen or next gen game when it has sort of PS2, PS3 sort of volumetrics, even worse sometimes. It's horrible. So what's this all about? Well, it's another case of low render resolution. So in our case, when a high resolution asset like a tree is obstructing or in view or in line of view of the chimney smoke, so what we're seeing are pixels overlapping and the edges not lining up properly. And what I mean by that is, for example, 1 pixel of that low resolution chimney smoke could occupy the same amount of space on screen as flower, a tree leaf, a confetti that has 64 pixels for the same amount of space on screen. Because remember, it's also stretched and upscaled to whatever output you've set it to. So all of these deficiencies will show and they're amplified. It's kind of like this with something that's high res and low res, but the edges, when they're superimposed, expose the illusion. And this gets more pronounced when the lighting is brighter opposed to when the lighting changes and it gets darker, as you'll see. And this is because the voxels that make up the volumetrics have less light information to be calculated on, but because our ray budget is so low, it makes any and all smoke, chimney, stuff like this automatically appear like it's black smoke, because from what we know before from how ray tracing works, if it hits a pixel, it lights up with appropriate color information. If it doesn't, it's dark or no information. Generally dark. And that's what we're seeing here. The voxels, pixely, blocky shapes are blended between the grey and the black, so they're harder to notice. And this could also explain why the fog in this game looks so thick, almost opaque at times, where it's very hard to see. Yeah, so on volumetrics, I don't understand how this is all supposed to be okay. I mean, you do a low render for lighting, fair enough, but then you do it also for this. It's like you're purposely trying to break the illusion. The game has elements where it looks fantastic, but then you've got things like this where only until you're close up does it look like it fits the bill. When you're far away, it looks like, what am I playing? I'm playing a half-done game. Like, I understand and appreciate LODs, but if you be aggressive with every setting and every technique in your game, you know, what are we doing? It's like I'm playing, you have half a game that works and half a game that appears broken. Who thought this was a good idea? I don't understand at Pearl Abyss. What's going on there? I mean, when you pull these tricks off and it works, you look like geniuses. Like you've done with the billboard technique for the draw distance. Absolutely amazing, and I'm all for it. You look good when you pull that off. When you don't pull things off, it looks like you don't know what you're doing. And that might be the case. So I don't know why this was given the green light. I don't understand it. But anyway, on to the next thing. Let's go. Waterfalls. These look really awful. For me, they are the biggest inconsistencies in the game, because you have one of the best looking running waters in any video game that is super optimized, amazing physics, looks incredible, and then they just plug and play this PS3 level waterfall that looks like a sprite that's on a constant loop that doesn't match color completely, and it's low resolution. And you can see it as if it's just been stuck onto the face of the wall and trying to blend one water to another, and the sides of it you can see the low res pixel or whatever that is. It just looks really off. The game looks so incredibly beautiful with its amazing environments and detail, but then eventually you turn your head and amongst this is this, and it looks so out of place, it looks so jarring, it breaks it all away. It just makes you think, what is this? Because well and truly this is something from a previous generation, definitely not from this generation, no way. So it was time to just verify just for myself to see how Red Dead 2 does things. And off the bat, it just looks way more incredible and consistent to the world around it. But the more important thing I wanted to show you all is that the water in this game, when it meets the waterfall, it's one thing, it's one consistency. The water is actually flowing and not changing into something else. It doesn't feel like something else is jigsawed into it, and it makes it look incredible. And again, this is just a bit of consistency that I would like to see in Crimson Desert, but it makes you think, well, if they had the water physics that they do, and they have these water physics that are next generation and incredible, why didn't they just do what Red Dead did? Unless they don't know how to do it, and maybe it was a copy and paste job, I don't know. I mean, in Red Dead 2, the FPS tanks almost halves when you go near water, and maybe Pearl Abyss know this, and maybe the technology behind their water would tank the FPS if it cascaded in a waterfall effect. Who knows? But something doesn't seem right. It feels like a copy and paste job, or it feels like someone's got some asset and done X, Y, and Z. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't make sense to me. And it's again, a lot of people have said this as well. It's very out of place. And definitely needs fixing. And on a quick side note, the outdoor at night and the indoor lighting in this game.
God damn it! Get the hell out of there!
Alright, let's move on. To look at the future of what's in store for this game in terms of real graphical fixes, we have to go back and look at how they dealt with Black Desert Online. Pearl Abyss will release a record number of patches, as they have done in the past for Black Desert Online, but they have a reputation of not fixing graphical issues. Even to this day, Black Desert Online suffers from really bad pop-ins and LODs, and this game suffers from it as well. You can think of it as a genetic disease that the engine has inherited. They haven't fixed it really, you know, they've just built upon it with AI. The most important thing that they need to focus on is lighting. If they can fix the lighting, the game would be revived, you could say. It worked for Cyberpunk because lighting is everything in a game. But how can they do it? Well, like we discussed before, change the ray per pixel count to a higher one, ideally 1:1, or wait for ray reconstruction, the next iteration, to come out, which would probably be with DLSS 5, which might come out in September this year, but that's a long time, and who knows then. But apparently they've already fixed the lighting. That's right, in patch 1.03 they said they've improved the lighting. Any other subsequent patch has talked about how AMD's ray regeneration has been updated or something like that, but that's as far as it goes. So look out for this sort of gaslighting that, oh, the lighting's fixed. No, it's not. It definitely is not fixed. And in patch version 1.06, they released a night mode. Let's just see what it does, turning it off. So this is brand new. It looks even worse. I mean, why would they even do this? I mean, it does nothing. It does nothing for the picture. And this is how it is normal mode, so this is turned on. I mean, what a surprise. Nothing's changed. And they keep trying to do this on you, and they will keep trying to. And it's proving my theory right, which is the actual fix for the lighting will involve tanking the FPS, i.e. the ray per pixel count, increasing it. They can't afford to do that. They will never do that. So they'll give you cheap tricks and say, hey, look, kinda alright now. To keep you satiated in the patches, they'll give you a new saddle. Companion quests are fixed. Here's a pet Komodo dragon, I don't know. And people will eat it up. You know, if they fixed the lighting in version 1.3, why, or if they've improved it, what are they doing night mode for? It really does scream incompetence. I don't understand it. But one thing I do get is the formula that they've cracked. How are they doing this? How are they getting away with this? And that's simple. It's quite simple. Copy what Tears of the Kingdom and Nintendo done. That's it. You do that to the best of your ability, you're gonna sell millions of copies. This game, Tears of the Kingdom, sold 10 million copies in 3 days. 18 million copies in a month. You do less than half of the things that this game does, you're still a success. And that's what Pearl Abyss have actually done. An open world game, climbing system, upgrade system, skill trees, trinkets, ultra hand stuff as well, hidden clothing, special swords, weaponry, X, Y, and Z, the list goes on. Towns, locations, all of that good stuff. You do that half as good, that's all that's needed. Nintendo had an excuse to not well, they did actually a miracle to get it running on the Switch, but their excuse is, well, we're running it on almost antiquated hardware and that's why we had graphical restraints. Pearl Abyss really don't have that, but they don't have to justify themselves because they've created an addictive formula. It's as simple as that. In 1 month, they done 33% of what Nintendo did. 6 million copies or 7 million copies, whatever. They done it though. So within that, you're going to create a fan base. You're going to create fanatics as well with millions. They saw the system and how gamers are. Gamers will play. Gamers want that. That's what they did. And you can see, of course, elements of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom in this game. But Nintendo did get their lighting right. But going back to fixing Crimson Desert's issues, I did find this stuff. On February 12th this year, GE News, a Korean website, interviewed the CEO of Pearl Abyss, and he said that they've already got plans for multiplayer. And remember, this is before the game's even launched. And then another source says that they've already begun research and development on a Switch 2 port, and that their focus is to ensure that the base game sells well through the free updates. So what this tells me is they're not looking to fix the issues that I've highlighted in this video because they're looking for more money. Yeah, money is their incentive. Nothing wrong with that if your game is complete and it works on all platforms and there's no major issues. But if you've got major issues in the game, which I've highlighted, and you're still talking about how you want to implement multiplayer and you want to make a Switch 2 port, it's like, yeah, you're facetious. To further the point of you being quite seedy is how you got pre-order sales and only a week before that you put in a de novo DRM, which is proven to kill FPS by 10%. Fact. No, but you just sneak it in 1 week before. And I say sneak it in because you knew that if you told people before it's going to have DRM and de novo, your pre-order sales would have gone down by a lot. And then there's the fact that you, for some reason, didn't want to work with Intel when they were telling you they want to work with you for years and years. Check out Jay's 2 cents on that. And you left Intel, you didn't tell people with Intel GPUs, hey, if you got Intel GPU, the game's not ready for you. But give us the money first, then we'll tell you that. So the company is very, very, very dodgy. I don't think I need to say much more. I mean, I've got about 10 more things I can talk about, but then this video will be triple the length and people don't have that much time. And your time is valuable, whether you recognize that now or you don't. So here's my checklist of things to do in 2026 at least before buying a game. Number 1, what has the studio made before? Was it a legit good game with a stable optimized engine within its genre? Because studios can shift genres, but what did they achieve prior to a proposed shift from their genre field? So that's number 1. Number 2, it's all good to have a high patch and update history, but what did that entail? Were those patches major fixes or just fluff high quantity patches that left huge problems to sit and fester for the majority of the game's lifetime? And No Man's Sky is a game that came out the same time as Black Desert Online, but look how far that's come. No Man's Sky did a rehaul of the whole engine because they knew it needed it, and it pays off. Black Desert Online, I think they tried a overhaul, but they couldn't do it, or it ran like garbage. So this point should be taken very seriously. Number 3, is there a big marketing push? Because especially today, from all media angles, the games are, in my opinion, they're overhyped. They under-deliver, not all, but most, and they are overshilled from content creators all over the show. So be wary of that because this is huge for sales numbers. Influencers can sell, and even content creators, they can sell to subscribed loyal viewers, and that's the perfect bespoke marketing strategy. It's actually genius if you think about it. So you as someone who doesn't have anything invested in that and is just, neutral, your targeted, whether you like it or you don't. So watch out for that. Number 4, watch the trailers and tech demos, because prior to release, some tech channels, would show the game trailer, do analysis on it, and there would be blunders on the trailer, but the commentators wouldn't talk about it. There's a blurry mess over there, and what's that? Watch out for these things if you can. It will give you an insight. Number 5, with game review companies, take everything with a grain of salt. And lastly, stay off main Reddit threads about the game. From what I've seen, the truth is not welcome on certain Reddit boards and game Reddit threads. I would say it's like toxic positivity over there. Watch out for that. And on a closing point, you might have noticed I've not talked about the story or the controls that are really janky, and that's because
I don't have to explain what's understood, man.
So thanks for making it this far in the video. I hope this video helped you understand ray tracing more, possibly gave you an understanding of how the game works with lighting, or how it handles it, and if you're more well informed about things about this game that you didn't know before, so it could help you in a decision to either buy or not to buy the game, etc, etc. Me personally, I want to keep playing this game, but I'm shelving it for now. I think it's fun, I love exploring and all that good stuff, but there's just so many things that are piling up, especially the lighting. There's other things of course, but it's just too much for me to just continue playing in this state. It's really broken and I'm not a beta tester. And if you're wondering, I do test the new patch versions, but same result. Of course, give a like, share and subscribe so I can pump out more of these videos, because I wish there were more of these sorts of videos out there. We'll tell it like it is. They're not sponsored by or made deals with studios, so they have to glaze the game, whatever. That's just silly to me, because it's turning YouTube into a marketing machine, and that's not what it is in my opinion. So I want to bring that sort of old school back where we're saying it how it is. So leave your thoughts and comments down below. Thank you again for watching this video. It means a lot to me, and stay tuned for my next video. Take care and see you next time. And I have to address this. I don't want to, but I have to address this because it's rampant and I don't like it at all, where there's people calling this game the best thing ever, the best engine ever, highly optimized to the brim, X, Y, and Z. This one's for you.